The Every Point Sports Podcast featuring Greg and Jack starts right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live back again on a Sunday. Every Point Sports Podcast. I am Jack Stash from Fantasy Farm Sports. We've got the OldGamerGK Entertainment and special guest this Sunday, Liam Sagarian at Liam Skaggs, our Philadelphia fan. How we doing, guys?
Doing great. Doing wonderful. As always, it's Sunday. We're bringing the energy. We got a special guest today, so we have to up our game a little bit. Anxious to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, hey, my expectations are high. Let me tell you, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I'm happy, like you said, great Sunday. I'm excited to talk all aspects of whatever we're talking about, and let's get to it.
Awesome.
We got really specific there. That's what I like. We like to start off with specifics and we run wild here on a Sunday, right? We've got our fourth pot of coffee ready to roll. So let's get going. Guys, I think we decided to start with the guy in Pittsburgh. And I'm not talking Mason Rudolph. I'm not talking
Will Howard. You're talking about Will Howard.
Listen, it was Will Howard for a minute. He put on the suit. They said he throws a tight spiral. And then they went, well, hold on a second. There's still a free agent out there that we're really interested in.
What?
Yeah. And but I still think Will Howard still has a spot on the roster, especially moving forward. This is going to be a nice learning year for him, which I think is great. I didn't like the idea of throwing him into the fire, but I liked him starting more than Mason Rudolph. So
I'm with you there. Hey, Will Howard, as Jack knows, is from my hometown, Downingtown, Pennsylvania. I've served him and his family many a times at the old restaurant I used to work at. Great guy, great family, rooting for his success. We're happy for him. But I think that this is good for him too, and it's going to be good for his development.
You know,
absolutely.
It could be. It feels
for everybody that doesn't know what's going on is that Rodgers finally did sign with the Steelers. So that's why we're saying Will Howard no longer is going to be the starter. Mason Rudolph is no longer going to be the starter. It is now Arron Rodgers' job as long as he can stay healthy. I think even if he goes out and throws duck balls all day, it's still his job.
I appreciate his honesty. I mean, he basically told Tomlin that he was going on vacation. He'll sign when he comes back. Yep. And Tomlin basically said, hey, as long as you're here for the start of minicamp. And he went, well, what about OT? He goes, I don't care about those letters. We don't care about the letters. Be here for the start of real camp. Fit your vacation in. Do whatever you got to do, and we'll sign you. And Arron Rodgers, in turn, told the media, oh, well, how much will you take? He goes, I don't care. I'm going to play for the team that I want to play for, and they'll pay me. That's what the bargaining agreement's there for. I'm not really worried about money at this point. I'm going to play one more year of football. End of story. He took whatever money. He didn't take this extravagant amount of money.
No,
he took
what he
13 million?
13.6. What he took was 13.65 million for 1 year, 10 million guaranteed. Now it can be worth up to 19.5 with incentives, but you're getting listen, guys. No matter how he's played the last couple years of his starting career, he's still a Hall of Fame quarterback. You're getting a Hall of Fame quarterback at 13.65 million. That is a steal, especially with a team like the Steelers, who kind of are in win now mode.
Well, let's just talk. Can we talk about a couple players that he had better seasons than last year, despite the Jets looking like the Jets?
Oh, listen, I understand. That's why I preferenced it by saying no matter how he looked the last couple years. I mean, let's face it. All right, last year, yes, he was 5-12. He still completed 63% of his passes. He passed for 3,800 yards, almost 3,900 yards. He was 28-11 with the quarterback rating of 90.5. Now, listen. You were banging the drum last week before about Dak Prescott being a 30-10 guy. He's damn near 30-10 last year with a down year.
I like my 30-10 guys. I appreciate that.
Saying, he was damn near 30-10 with a bum year.
Listen, I've damaged more drums banging them for people than I have bought drums in the past year. I get it. 30 and 10 is kind of where I like to be. Absolute Jaden Daniels is a fantastic quarterback, but let's not pretend that Arron Rodgers wasn't in the same area code as far as statistics go. Patrick Mahomes, really down year. No one took shots at him because they want him to be the face of the NFL. I'm telling you, it's when somebody thinks they have just a little bit left, and this isn't Muhammad Ali getting in the ring with Larry Holmes one more time. That he was way past his prime. He was dancing around. He got clubbed for 13 rounds. This is Arron Rodgers, who showed flashes of last season. He was trying to get everybody on the same page. I think the coaching staff was at best a bunch of high school assistant coaches. I know Salah's probably a college professional coach.
Salah was a legit coach. He really was.
But the rest
of them, I'm with you. And let's face it, and I don't mean to cut you off real quick, but it's the Jets. And with all the stories that have come out about the Jets, what is he, 17, 18-year-old kid of the owner? He's the one running it. Madden. He's like, listen, the Madden ratings aren't good for him. We're shipping them out. Oh, his Madden rating is good. Let's sign him.
Why do you think they signed Justin Fields? He's fast. He's athletic. His Madden rating. Wow. I mean, so Arron Rodgers, let's not pretend. And by the way, this is not the Arron Rodgers show. Last year,
they're going to be a ground and pound team. They're going back to the old Steelers, but now they have something. They can't stack 8 in the box now.
Last year may have been the circus that surrounded him. Really, it's the circus that the Jets have been, proclaiming for years. The circus is so crazy. They turned down Rex Ryan as I go, oh, you know what? We don't like success because that's the last time we had it, right? It's not the Arron Rodgers show. This is the Mike Tomlin show. This has been the Mike Tomlin show for years. Arron Rodgers is a nice cog in the situation. And I think he left Green Bay because the trust was gone. He was trying to get out of there for a couple years anyway, but the trust was gone. He trusts Tomlin. If Tomlin says it, Arron will do it, and vice versa. So I think there's going to be a lot of trust there.
There's that mutual respect, huge mutual respect. I don't know if you guys seen, but when he was being signed, there was a clip being shown on ESPN multiple times of Arron Rodgers throwing this unbelievable pass to beat the Steelers, and Tomlin with this smirk on his face, and Arron looking over at Tomlin with this big smile, like, I did it to you, type thing. There's that huge mutual respect there, and I can't wait to see those two together.
Yeah, again, for those that think that Arron Rodgers is this Trojan horse, if you will, right? He's just going to come there and play patty cake, and then he's going to retire into the sunset. I'd be very careful there, because I don't think Arron Rodgers is just going to throw a couple footballs. I think last year was, the first year off the Achilles. He found out how much he can move. Once you find out how much you can move, you'll figure out which tricks you can improve upon. Everybody said, oh, he's dead in the water. I can't believe what the Steelers. Again, be very careful with the dog that's laying on his back, because you come to him and he's going to bite you.
Oh yeah.
But are you so sure that he's going to be able to improve upon those things that you think he can improve on at the age that he's at? I mean, he's always been incredibly athletically gifted, but we're talking about coming off of a serious injury, and yes, he's had a full year to recover from that. But I mean, he's 40 years old. He's not the most engaged in his let's say practice and workout habits, and on a year-round basis. He is obviously an eccentric personality and a very eroding type of leader from the most important position in the sport. You're asking him to come in, and like you said, maybe it's good that finally it's not the Arron Rodgers show, where basically every other stop it has been. It's the Tomlin show, and he can kind of mitigate that. But Tomlin has had to mitigate and put out fires for his entire career. Who knows how long Antonio Brown was acting like Antonio Brown, that we just didn't know about it because Mike Tomlin had it under wraps. We know what Arron Rodgers is at this point, and I don't think there's any stopping Arron Rodgers from being that guy, no matter if Najee Harris, who I'm not high on, is running the ball, or if he has DK Metcalf or Pat Freiermuth at his disposal. He's still going to end up being Arron Rodgers at the end of the day. And this is coming from a very big Arron Rodgers football fan, but like knowing what he is off of the football field, it's not inducive to winning. It's not conducive to winning. And the Steelers are trying to just extend a window that frankly isn't there. What have they been trying to do ever since Big Ben's last 2 good years is they've been trying to stay relevant and they haven't won a playoff game. They're not close. The roster's not close. I don't know if you're just trying to do right by Cam Hayward at this point, but if you want to do right by Cam Hayward, go ship him to a contender. The Steelers aren't close. They're at best. Rodgers is at best. Well, not at best. He is the 3rd best quarterback in the division. They are the 3rd best team in their division. And there's probably a pretty good gap between the Bengals, Ravens, and them. So I don't know what the Steelers hope to get out of this, but if they're trying to win, I don't think they will. And as all of their fans want them to lose, I think that's what inevitably it will bring, which is actually a good thing for them, but that's not their goal.
He's the 3rd
I
best.
personally think they are light years above what the Bengals are. Only thing Bengals have going for them is the passing game. That's it. That doesn't win in the league. Steelers are good on both sides of the ball. Their defense is built to win now. Yeah. Right now. They have a good offensive line, if not a great offensive line. Najee Harris isn't there anymore, but they did draft somebody that's supposed to be pretty good in the 4th round, I think out of Iowa, if I remember correctly.
He's a monster. Yep.
Yeah. And like I said, and they're going to ground and pound. They have DK Metcalf, who I admit can be a head case at certain points. I'm a Niners fan, so
he's less of a head case than George Pickens.
And better.
Oh, no, listen, I agree, but he's also a guy that, if you give him a little shove with the shoulder like Jimmy Ward did, he turns around and grabs you a face mask and pulls you right down to the ground. 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, over under 2.5 sideline blow-ups between the two throughout the year.
He wins fights. He's going to embarrass you in fights. DK Metcalf.
The guy's a beast. The guy's a freaking beast. But I mean, like I said, DK Metcalf, they have Austin there, and they have another guy that they drafted, a wide receiver, a speedster guy. So, I mean, I think that's going to be enough weapons. I'm with you kind of offensively. You could say they're not built for now. But like I said, they do have a good offensive line. They do have a good tight end. They do have a good wide receiver. And now they do have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Even if he puts up the same numbers he put up last year, you put that along with a good running game and their defense, like the Jets' defense was good up until Robert Saul got fired. Once that was done, their defense fell apart. So you put that defense on the field with him, they win 10 games without him. You have to say he's at least 2 more wins.
And let's not forget about the 6'9" tight end that Pittsburgh has roaming around there from time to time, too. We didn't mention Freiermuth. I think you could see my prediction for Rodgers this year, again, on a bounce-back year, I'll say 36-10. I think he can be happy with the way that the season finishes. 36-10, and Pittsburgh gets the playoffs and wins a playoff game. I think this could look very close to what Brett Favre did in Minnesota. He doesn't get all the way. And we talk about the Jordan years in Washington about how bad he was, right? I just want to preface this. There were nights Michael looked like the Michael in Chicago. There were nights that happened. It wasn't all the time, but there were nights where he called upon himself and he looked like the guy. Now, most nights he should have deferred to Jerry Stackhouse. Right? Jerry was the guy there. But in Rodgers' case, he can. Rodgers is just the point guard deferring to everybody. And as long as that spiral's tight and he's taken care of, he's got enough strong kids around him in Tomlin defense. I just think that everybody's going to go, well, we're getting the guy who was the Jets. He was the Jets quarterback. He wasn't very good. You're getting You're getting what Mr. T thought Rocky was, right? On the second fight, the slow Rocky, and then he came out, he just started throwing him. Bang, 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 bang. He keeps throwing him. You're like, oh my God, 10 pounds lighter, and he's re-energized, and he's a rocket. I think you could get this. Not every week, but you're going to sit there and go, dude, Arron, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns? What the hell are the Jets doing? And, they still don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, it's the Jets, so I don't mark up last year too much. But also, let's not forget, Arron Rodgers was their 3rd pick, was the Steelers' 3rd pick, their 3rd choice. First, it was Stafford. That fell apart. That didn't come through. So then they tried to sign Justin Fields. That didn't work. He decided to go to the Jets. So then they pivoted to Arron Rodgers. So Arron Rodgers was third on their list. So let's not forget that either. And like I said, he is 41 years old. He'll be 42 in December 2nd, 42 years old. That's old. It is old. But again, a good defense and a good running game can cover a lot.
Are you convinced they have a good running game?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Najee Harris had a bounce back year. You throw somebody else behind that line. It's hard for me not to believe they're going to have a good running game.
Done a lot with the running game too, right? He was there a little bit for the end of Bennis, right? And then it was a completely different running back when Le'Veon Bell was there, right? Mm-hmm. So like he's changed running styles a bunch of times. He knows how to get certain things out of running backs.
I put with the running game, I put the Steelers up there with Shanahan. With the Shanahans, that you could, they kind of find backs you could just plug and do well in their system.
I don't think that Arthur Smith's offensive ingenuity comes anywhere close to Kyle Shanahan's.
Oh no, I'm talking about Tomlin's philosophy of running the ball.
Yeah,
well,
he'll run
it might be Arthur Smith.
Philosophy is one thing, but Shanahan makes up for it in the zone scheme. He's the greatest he's the greatest running back schematic coach there is in the league. He's probably the best offensive schemer in the NFL. Shanahan is. That is not Arthur Smith.
I'm just trying to compare the two, how every year they're a plug-and-play running back in their system. No matter who's the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, they have a strong running game every year. The only common denominator in that whole thing is Tomlin.
And you know what else Tomlin likes about this signing too? I got news. Arron Rodgers throughout his whole entire career doesn't throw interceptions. That dude really doesn't turn the ball over. In fact, he's got the best touchdown to interception ratio almost of all time. I think he's top 3. He might be 2 or 1. It's raised a little bit after last season, but he does not take chances with the football. And that's the kind of guy you're looking at because you don't want to give opportunities to the other team. I mean, Tomlin likes playing with, at least 2 aces in his deck of cards all day long. Defense, offense, all these things. I just, again, people should be very careful, thinking Arron Rodgers had zip on his ball last year. He just found out a little late that he wasn't able to move like he used to be able to. Okay, we can fix that. I still have this, but I don't have quite the movement. I have some, but not what I've been used to over the years. Great. But getting that information in week 8, he wasn't able to mitigate and fix certain things. He tried to use his tricks. The tricks worked in some spots. Obviously, he was defended against. I think it's a good signing. It makes Pittsburgh, or should I say, keeps Pittsburgh relevant. And again, I'd be very careful. The quarterback that I'm so concerned about right now is not Arron Rodgers. As long as we talk about quarterbacks for a minute, I am so concerned, and I will tell everyone, stay away from, please do not draft CJ Stroud this year. I got a gut feeling his shoulder's already sore in camp. You had shoulder surgery and now it's sore already in camp. Man, I'll tell you what, and for all the crap we give Justin Fields, if he stands next to CJ Stroud, you pick the man. The man looks like Justin Fields, and CJ Stroud has a thinner frame. I'm telling you, CJ Stroud looks small next to Fields. He looks small.
What does that have to do with anything at the quarterback position? I get it, maybe if you're Aaron Donald, but the physical Marvel quarterbacks are athletes, not muscular. The physical Marvel quarterbacks are Josh Allen, not tank human beings like Justin Fields.
I totally get that, but when you start to
let's face it, though, most of your all-time greats have been slighter build quarterbacks.
What quarterback do you know as a meathead that was a great quarterback?
John Elway.
No, he
wasn't even a meathead. No. He had a gut on him most of the time.
John Elway was a meathead. Dan Marino was a meathead.
Justin Fields.
Dan Marino, John Elway.
Justin Fields didn't want to grow up,
trying to catch cheerleaders at the age of 42 in New York.
Brett Favre might have been the bigger quarterback out of all.
What I'm saying, my point is that Stroud is a little slim, and the shoulder's already giving him issues. I don't believe he's going to make it through this full season, and the disappointment from people that draft him very high is coming.
Yeah, but I think Stroud already had a better passing years than Fields will ever see.
No, that's true. But I'm comparing the size of the man that could take.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
beating.
if you're comparing frames, yeah, I mean, you could go right down the line though. But again, when I'm looking at a quarterback, I'm not looking at his build. No way, I'm not. I want to know what's in between here. To me, is what matters more than anything. When I was younger, it used to be to me, it was all about arm strength. I want to see you be able to throw it out of the park. That's how I was when I was younger. Chicks dig the long ball, you know.
Is that true?
But now that I got older and I know how the game is played, it's more played like a chess match. I want somebody that has this inside, somebody that can anticipate the throws, that can read the defense. If you have half the arm strength as Josh Allen, but you're still able to read that defense and deliver it on time, I'll take you.
Drew Brees.
Great. I know that's great information. I just built a hen house in my backyard, so now I know that chicks dig the long ball. I have to put a little baseball diamond back there for them, hit it over their hen house. Fantastic information. I'm learning things here.
Just make sure you pass it on to the Roosters.
I'm learning things here. Yeah, up until I'm glad that Arron Rodgers is signed, man. Finally the story is a real story, right? Because he's there. It was just speculation. Up until last week, I thought that he was just excited about Pittsburgh because of the United States Ayahuasca Commission they got up there in up in Dortmund. It's a town just outside of Pittsburgh. It's the first coalition, 1912.
Oh,
never know what you're gonna find here in good old PA.
That's right.
So now that Arron Rodgers is signed, and there's really not any jobs left out there. Kirk Cousins, what's going to happen? I know Atlanta, they were dying. I know they wanted to trade him, but they wanted somebody to pay a lot of his salary, which nobody was willing to do.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you bring up Kirk Cousins because there might have been a Kirk Cousins sighting at Reading Terminal Market in Philadelphia yesterday. But hey, I'd be here for it. If the Eagles have Kirk as a backup, I think it'd be great. I think there
was something that came up, and I didn't click on it on YouTube that said Kirk Cousins being traded to the Eagles.
I
didn't click it because I figured that's just clickbait. That's all it was. But I didn't know there was a sighting.
No, he was legitimately at Reading Terminal Market yesterday. I mean, of course, he could be here for anything.
Anything.
And Reading Terminal Market's awesome. But
they got great apples.
That is true. I think, and I would be all for it. I think he would be, a great backup, and I think he's a great teammate too, and a great guy. I would be, if I was him, I would be upset with the Falcons too, and I would want to be a starter. Stand on your pride. You've made a lot of money in this league, and you've had a lot of success in this league. Maybe not, postseason success, but you've been an above average quarterback to a good quarterback your entire career. So I would have taken things maybe a little personal as well. I don't think it says anything really about his character. I think another really good spot for him would be the spot that's kind of always been rumored for him since they were together in Washington. And that's finally going to Greg, your Niners, and being Brock's backup.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that is any type of a down game from Brock, you're going to start hearing chirps.
Totally.
And I don't want Brock's our guy. I don't want to hear chirps. If we didn't re-sign Brock to a long-term deal and we were a 1-year deal only, I would be fine bringing Kurt. Up that competition. I'm all about more competition. Sure. But again, I don't want Brock looking over his shoulder right now. I want him to be comfortable in his own skin. I want him to speak up when he feels like he could speak up, and when he wants to speak up. I don't want a timid Brock. I want Brock full-blown, our starting franchise quarterback. If that doesn't end up working out, at least we're giving him all the opportunity to do that, though.
And the mental confidence.
Correct. Yeah, you bring somebody in like Cousins. That I don't care how confident you are. That's going to get in the back of your head.
You're looking over your shoulder.
Bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but ultimately, if that didn't happen, I 100% I was with you. I would have loved to have seen Kirk Cousins in a Niners uniform at some point, because I think he could have done really good things.
Sure.
What you're saying is Cousins to the Niners, you wouldn't like that.
No, I would not. No.
Instead of you would like that.
No, but I mean, unless there's an injury in training camp somewhere, which there seems to always be, I think he's kind of stuck with Atlanta.
Miami? Like, I don't know. There's not a lot of spots. Like, there's just not a lot of
spots.
What?
If I was Miami, that would be one. I would be picking up the phone and I'd be calling Atlanta. Tua has not finished a year out for you in the last 3 years, actually. He's one huge hit on the ground. away from retirement.
Yeah, he's
he's one
you
bring in somebody like Kirk Cousins. No, I like that move. I like that move a lot, actually.
You know what I would do? This would take guts to do it, but no one watches them really very much anyway. No one expects anything.
Arizona,
a little bit of imagination. Yeah, why not Arizona? Right?
I was kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. Stop reading my mind. No, but Arizona, and this is the reason why, you could run a specialized offense there. Almost a little bit how they kind of wanted to with Fields and Wilson last year, right? You have a true quarterback in Cousins, and then you have a scat back who could sling the damn thing in Murray. Can't see over the line, but who cares? Get an offensive coordinator out there that has, a special mind and frequencies that could deal with this. And if it doesn't work, it's Arizona. No one's sitting there, burning down if they could not do this in Philadelphia. But I'm saying, though, they couldn't do it in Dallas. There are places where you can't do this. But out in the desert where no one's paying attention, all of a sudden, if it's working, Arizona's interesting. They're 5-1, and they're running this wacky offense that no one knows anything about how to stop. Well, do we stop Cousins? Do I stop Murray? It's really difficult. By the way, you got Harrison running around out there, McBride running around. I think it could add layers. And what's the worst that happens? Cousins
almost like
play a little bit.
Almost like when the Steelers were introducing Cordell Stewart into the lineup.
Yeah, that would work. That would work.
Some packages here and there.
I know that you're paying Murray. Keep him on the field.
You bring up Murray. I do like that. You bring up Murray and how short he is and all the physical tools in the world. And Liam, earlier, you brought up a guy, Drew Brees, short. All right?
Yeah.
Why don't these coaches bring somebody in like Drew Brees to coach these short quarterbacks? Listen, this is the way I see through the line. This is how I'm able to diagnose, I can't see over the center or the tackle, but I can see over this guard most of the time. So, he knows those little nuances that Kyler Murray just doesn't seem like he ever picked up on.
Right.
I don't understand why these coaches don't bring in somebody like that has the experience, that could say, listen, I've already done it. Try it this way.
Sure. I don't know if I could directly speak to why it hasn't been attempted, but I think part of my thought process on the matter would be at least when it comes to Kyler's case and a lot of quarterbacks, I guess, that are if you take out Russell Wilson and Drew Brees, a lot of the quarterbacks that are, that small in stature are pretty rare types of athletes, like a Kyler Murray. And that's kind of what he'll always resort back to in the face of danger. Drew Brees never had the athletic ability to be able to peel out. He had to get that ball out, and he had to get it over the middle of the field, and he had to do it quick. Kyler at the first sight of danger is splitting out, and then the play becomes reactionary, right? You get off of your actual X's and O's and you follow the quarterback and try and create a pocket. I don't know if that's really able to be coached out of Kyler. It's in his football DNA at this point. And so maybe you bring in a Drew Brees to kind of help him see things, to kind of help him see developments, in the actual scheme of the X's and O's. But as soon as that offensive line breaks down, and we know Arizona's offensive line is not good, he's running out. He doesn't have the wherewithal to stay in there and fire that ball. He doesn't want to take the hit.
And I'm total agreement with you. But if you could get him in there for 3-4 years, even if you could get him to cut down on that 5% of the time, that helps you out in the long run. That helps you out.
Sure.
You're right. That you're never going to get that out of him. That's bred into him. It's in his DNA. But just like Bill Walsh did with Steve Young, that was built in Steve Young's DNA too, was running that damn ball, but he learned how to pass the ball. That's where as a quarterback, you need to keep working at your craft. I feel like a lot of quarterbacks don't do that anymore. They rely on their athleticism and their arm, and that's it. Once one of those go, and then your career is done. Work at your craft. Get better. Like Tom Brady, he's the perfect example. Work at it.
You know what they should
do? Brady and Brees are the perfect example.
Yes.
Here's what they should do with Kyler Murray. Kyler, what's his favorite video game? Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, baby. I'll be on later on today.
Perfect. And that's a great push for Greg.
Hey, if Karl Anthony Towns goes to Phoenix, you have Booker, Murray, and Towns to all play together.
Yeah, and I hear Thibodeau's going to play center there.
I really want to get your thoughts on that.
So I have thoughts on that.
I know you do, so I'm anxious to hear them.
I can't wait to tell you.
We both love Thibs. We both love him.
Yeah. Sometimes your passion gets a hold of you.
Yeah, I know.
Here's what I would do. Here's what I would do. If I was the coaching staff, I'd sit him down. I go, look here's what we want you to do after practice today. And he's gonna dip his head because he always does. And they go, we want you to play Call of Duty. And he's gonna be like a dog wanting to get outside, right? Just like this. And when they ask him how to play it, he's gonna be driven nuts, right? They're gonna go, look, we just want you to. What's your favorite gun to use? What's your favorite player? Your favorite setup? And he goes this. And they go, okay, you can only play the game if you play your worst setup. And he's going to be really upset, but at the end of the day, it's going to make him a better player at Call of Duty. I would use the example of chess. There's a guy that out there all the time loves using the queen just to take people's play, right? But if he loses the queen, he can't use the bishop and rook in tandem. Makes the same moves. It's two pieces, and you have to set it up better. See, Murray's not good at setting up the next play. He could throw the bomb. He could throw the out. But the art of throwing to the running back and getting the linebacker to come up, then throw to the slant behind him, and putting all of those plays together. Poker's about telling a story. Sometimes you should lose a hand or two, just so someone understands that you may play that hand, just so that they see what you're playing.
Not just lose a hand, show a losing hand.
For sure. Show the losing hand. So my whole thought process is if they can get Murray to get uncomfortable, but like Liam said, he never likes to. Once he feels just an itch of discomfort, boom, he's gone. Right? Once you feel an itch of discomfort, he's going to switch to his gun again. Once he feels an itch of discomfort, he's going to grab that queen. That's just what he does.
But what we're looking to do is to extend that a little bit, just a little bit. If you can extend that by a second or two in NFL, that's huge. I understand we'll never get it out of them, but if we can extend that just a little bit, that's all I'm looking for.
We never thought, and I never thought, every single time I saw Jalen Hurts play, I was like, there he goes, gone, running again. Every time he got down in the game, he would just go to the leg.
Listen, I'm a Bama fan. You don't need to tell me.
But I'm saying when he played it, even at Oklahoma, go to the legs, right? He was down against Baylor. I sat and watched him run the ball 16 times. I was like, well, he's going to come back in this game because his legs are working really good, but he's not going to throw the ball. And is he going to run out of time? And he's gotten more comfortable with trusting what that arm is and trusting he can get the out and trusting it's going to be accurate. And you know what? It's not 50-50, but it's certainly 55-45 arm legs now. And you can wear that hat all day because that's the kind of growth and maturity that finds you.
He worked at his craft.
He really did work.
He improved as a quarterback. He signed that big contract. He had that horrible next year, and he bounced back last year.
If you guys
and I were dogging him. Our first year of the podcast, we were dogging the hell out of Hurts.
I'm an Eagles fan, and I dogged him for years.
Yeah.
It was all true. It was all warranted, right? It was
all absolutely. Yeah.
It was all danger, and he's out. It was all he did it every time. It wasn't anything. We just kind of pointed it out, and I'm sure the people in Philly pointed out as well. But if you guys are impressed with what Tom Brady has done with his career, there's no way that you can't have a real respect for what Jalen Hurts has done. I mean, he was benched, then he was told to go to a different school. Right? I mean, you write the story. Then Philly drafts him. Everybody goes, boo! They hated him because we have a quarterback in Wentz, and he overcame that. And look at him.
And let's face it, the year that he was benched with Bama, he could have went somewhere else. He could have transferred that year. He decided to stick it out. He wanted to be there. He wanted to finish that year off with the team. So, that just shows character beyond character.
If you want to talk about a story, though, I'm telling you, Jalen Hurts is the blueprint of unlocking, Mega Man. That's what I call Kyler Murray. Little Mega Man. He looks like the Mega Man character running around, right? And to unlock, let's get back to seriousness. To unlocking the Mega Man, which is Kyler Murray. He looks like him. He's got the little.
But the difference between them is their mentality. Hurts wants to be good. Hurts wants to be great. He worked at it. Kyler Murray wants to be great at Call of Duty.
You know, why don't you get on there and humble him? That's what you need to do. You need to handle your business. Go take out Kyler Murray and his little guns and his little whatever he does on there. I don't know.
I have a little tidbit. We talked last week about Bryce Huff signing with the Niners from the Eagles last year and how I thought it was a sneaky good signing. Vic Fangio came out last week and said kind of stuck up for Bryce Huff because he was getting dogged a little bit because he had a down year last year after having what we talked about, 10 and a half sacks, pressure rate of 23 point something. He had wrist problems. He had a fractured wrist most of the year. So that hindered him a lot. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just coming out with information. Vic Fangio came out and said that. So that was kind of his, and he said that the Eagles were deep. He said they had guys coming up, you know, guys on the bench that was able to come in and do just as well as Bryce Huff was doing. So the depth had a lot to do with it also.
Are we talking about the big bad wolf?
Yes.
Because he's going to huff
and puff and blow your house
down. He's coming back. He's going to have a bounce back season, the big bad wolf.
Like I said, if we get 8 to 10 sacks from him, I am perfect. I am very, very happy with the signing. He's going to be a nice little rotation piece. If he can even come close to that 23% pressure rate that he had his final year with the Jets, he's going to be a steal. And we have him for 2 years.
And of course, Saleh knows him and knows how to use him effectively. So it's really the best place for him. The only thing that I can say about Bryce Huff, like obviously it was probably Howie Roseman's most disastrous signing or choice or move since taking Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. And at the end of the year, we still won a trophy. And Bryce Huff is entering a locker room with more Super Bowl rings than Nick Bosa. I'll leave it there.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Been to 2, but lost them. So
you got a whole call sheet of shots, don't you? Oh my God!
Listen, we still have 4 more than the Eagles. So
it's all fun.
That's all I care about.
Listen, the Eagles fans are. I always tell this all the time because people. I'm down here in Florida now. People are like, oh, you're probably an Eagles fan. I go, let me explain to you about Eagles fans. They go, well, they're maniacs. I go, they're passionate. And they go, well, what do you mean by passionate? I go, they're so passionate that if you say shit, they will burn your house down about their team. Yeah. No one's more passionate than them. You call them angry. You call them jerks. I'll tell you what, you might not be leaving that stadium alive if you're going, go Cowboys, too long.
Listen, I've seen a drunk guy, literally piss on somebody that had a freaking Dallas Cowboys blanket wrapped around him. All right, literally pissed on him.
Was he drunk or was he drunk on Eagles?
Any story I hear about the Eagles and their fans at that stadium, I believe every bit of it.
He was
Listen,
drunk.
I don't condone that type of stuff, but like, hey man, if you want to come in and showboat, we'll give it right back to you. But I'll do it in a respectful way. I can't speak.
I've been to so many games down there, and what drives me crazy is I can't wear my colors. Can't wear my colors without being harassed. That's it. Other than that, I'm fine. And I'm fine with the jarring back and forth. I love it. I love it.
You got to do, Greg.
They take it too far. Like they physically want to hurt you at a point.
Yeah,
you got to drink. You got to drink a lot of water. That's what you got to do. You got to be ready for.
I got a nice story about the last game I was there, and actually it ended up being a cool Eagles fan. I thought it was going to end up badly, but it ended up being good. I was there with my buddy Mikey Hess. Jack knows him.
Shout out to Mike.
And we're up in the one corner, so you can't really see down on the other end of the field. And the Eagles go up and they go to kick a field goal and they miss it. It was blocked or partially blocked. And I go to my buddy. I'm like, they should have never attempted it because it was a long field goal. And the guy goes, some guy in front of me, Eagles fan, turned around and he said something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I'm like, buddy, I'm sorry. We're kind of far away. I didn't see that, because he kind of knew I was rooting for the Niners. And what's that?
Probably like, what's your home address?
No, actually, it was kind of cool. I explained my whole point of view. Like, we're far away. You could barely see him, let alone me. And especially at my age. And he starts laughing and, kind of broke the ice. He's like, let me buy you a beer. First time I ever almost got in an argument with an Eagles fan, ended up getting bought a beer, which was actually kind of cool.
He was hoping, though, that you guys found that Cowboys blanket together. That way he could tandem be on it. That's what he was.
He was trying to get me drunk and take advantage of me. That's
what
he
was trying to fill you up. Right. Don't fall victim to that one beer. No, they're great fans. They're passionate fans, and sometimes they're misunderstood amongst a couple bad.
They are not misunderstood. They're exactly.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't call us misunderstood.
No, they're exactly understood. What you hear about them is what you get.
I don't know. I disagree. You hear that, Eagles fans? Whenever you see this mustache in town, I was on your side. I called you passionate. I was with you guys. It's these two you need to worry out.
Keep calling them passionate, but wear your Ravens jersey or wear your, whatever jersey you want.
I know what I got to do in the town. If I'm in Upper Darby, I got to shave my head. It's just the kind of town. I understand what I have to do to get by. That's the kind of guy I am. Fly, Eagles, fly until I'm back in the plane flying home.
Listen, don't make you fly, all right? Fly right out of the stadium.
I could join their passion, right? What are we gonna do to the bums tonight? Whatever they want to do after a loss, I'm with them.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Right? Even though we got two between the three of us, we've got a total of 6 birds, 1 on each hand, right? So I don't want to hear anything about the Eagles, right? We've used the bird on our own.
I'll give the bird to the Eagles fans every time.
That is not what he meant.
That is why I can't go. Now I listen, every time the Niners are in the area, I go to the Niners game down there. Every single time. I'm smart about it. Like, I don't sit there. I don't jump up, cheer for my team. I go down there. I want to enjoy myself. So I know what I have to do. Now, when I go up to the Giant Stadium, I can go nuts. I could become a fanatic fan then, a Niners fan. But you kind of have to know where you're at.
Sure.
See, that's home. That's real. See, the Giants, they're just whatever. They're fair weather. The Eagles are real fans.
Their fans have nothing to say to a Niners fan.
There's a real home field advantage. There's a real home field advantage when you can't even get a hotel because the hotel clerk goes, Niners or Eagles? And you go, I'm a Niners, and she hangs up on you. That's real home field advantage. But now you got yourself a consigliere. Liam will show you around the town. He'll show you all the eateries. He'll make sure that you're taken care of, not taken advantage of. It's very important when you go to Philadelphia.
Speaking of eateries, how cool was it what Geno Steaks did?
It was awesome.
Turned the whole thing into Saquon Barkley. Oh, by the way, Madden curse is going to hit you this year. It hit me last year. So good luck.
You're McCaffrey guy.
Aside from McCaffrey, I'll say the 3 covers before that are all quarterbacks who have won MVPs since their covers. So I'll take the odds that Saquon will be okay.
Maybe John put the curse with them in death.
Could be. Hey.
It could be a possibility, right, John?
But anyways, I thought that was really cool what Geno Steaks did.
They
turned the whole place
Eagles and the Niners is obviously the offensive line. I mean, at least last year. I mean, CMC did not have the.
He didn't get hurt because of our offensive line. He got hurt because of his knee tendonitis. He never got over.
Right. No. I know that, but I don't think that or I should say, I think Saquon's future success, going forward with the Eagles, is in part due to because our offensive line is just always elite and our run game is always elite. Just like the Niners game, run game schematically is elite. I do think that their lack of an elite offensive line probably hurts CMC in some regard.
Oh, absolutely. But CMC is so talented that, just like Barkley, the Giants offensive line wasn't that great either, but he still showed what he was. He was a great running back.
Right. He had
same thing with CMC.
I did think he was a little overhyped, honestly, coming to the Eagles, but that's just because I try to stay objective. I'm much more of a Negadelphian.
Actually, he wasn't.
If anybody's seen him, what he was able to do with the mediocre offense that he was on, I mean, you throw him over to somebody that has even an offensive line, not just to mention the 2 wideouts that you guys have, that takes pressure off of it. Just the offensive line alone. Besides him getting injured like he normally used to do, you'd have to believe he would have a huge season.
I know Liam doesn't play fantasy football, but there was a scout that came out what was it, midway through last offseason. And he blurted something out and it was gone in a flash. Like I couldn't find it anywhere. But he said basically the short of it was he believed that Saquon Barkley's move from the Giants to the Eagles could look a lot like what McCaffrey's move from Carolina to San Francisco looked like. That was a lot of the thoughts and beliefs. I believe I told Greg about it. And that's why I had Saquon Barkley as my number one player last year in fantasy football. When that guy said it, I went, I thought about it, tried to find it again, and it was like a ghost. And I went, you know what? Somebody that's trying to hide their tracks, I'm going to follow them. And I drafted Saquon Barkley. I had my number one running back last year. And it's little things like that. By the way, the whole CJ Stroud hurt shoulder thing, I'm not the only guy on that.
I could be wrong about this, but I think the scout that said that was actually Bay Area Representative John Middlecoff of 3 and Out in the Volume. I'm pretty sure he was the one who said that.
Good, yeah. I mean,
he used to be a scout for the Eagles.
He was a scout for the Eagles.
Yeah, he was. He's big. He did a nice. Him and another guy had a really good show together.
Radio show, right in San Fran.
Yeah.
His podcast, since he joined up with Colin Cowherd's network, has been pretty good.
Yeah, not bad at all. I don't mind him at all. He has a lot of good insight, and like I said, he was a scout for the Eagles, so he really knows that type. You know, that type.
Yeah,
of,
he knows the organization.
Yeah, yeah.
When it came out, I read it quickly. I saved it, and then all of a sudden, I couldn't find it on the same source for which it was let out on. And I was like, well, dude, that's really interesting that it was just disappeared, thin dust, gone, right? Obviously, there's probably a video clip somewhere, but the literature was gone. And I went, you know what? I don't think you'd want to move that quickly unless there was, somebody else really thought about it and was like, dude, take that down because we're trying to get him.
The only other move that I thought that was just as good or equal to that move is when the Ravens signed Henry. You take a back like that and you give John Harbaugh that type of weapon, even at Henry's age. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and the optionality in the backfield too. Like,
forget about the whole Lamar Jackson thing. I mean,
well, that's a fantastic point, right? So the Giants can't scout players, and now we know.
Well, they can. They drafted them. They just can't use them.
Well, yeah, right.
But you also could make a very fair argument that, like, given where the state of that Giants roster was in 2018, they should have never picked Saquon at 2. They shouldn't have. And they were probably right, honestly, in the state where they were as their franchise, especially after signing Daniel Jones. Now, you kind of have to reap what you sow there. But, like, it's not like they were ever going to be in a contentive window with Barkley anyway. They probably made the right move to move on from him as well. It's just a matter of, like, the byproduct of where he ends up that is kind of egg on your face. But I
disagree with that just for the fact that he's a generational talent. That's it.
But you didn't make a generational player out of him.
No, because he was hurt and you didn't surround him by the right people. But again, that was because of the bad decisions that your scouting department made. You put your baskets into Daniel Jones, which you shouldn't have. You should have actually paid Barkley. Then you would have a stud running back still. You would have a young quarterback, or you would have Wilson coming in with Barkley there, with Neighbors there. You would have a start of an offense that was growing. Now you don't,
The truth is,
it really depends on how many more really effective years you think Barkley has. But I think given the state,
well, you kind of have to think he's somewhat fresh, wouldn't you? I mean, his first couple years in the league, he was kind of injury prone a little bit.
I don't know if fresh is the right word when somebody with a history of knee injuries, especially like a workout warrior like him, it could go at any time. It really,
but then I go back.
First could hit him at any time.
All right, but then I go back to two older guys, Frank Gore, who had 3 knee reconstructions, and then Clinton Portis. Both of them long careers, knee issues out the yin yang. Every year it seemed like, but they had a prolonged period. What I'm trying to say is, earlier in their career they were very injury prone. They had knee problems, but later on in their career they were more durable.
Sure, but it's not like that. It's not like one, they were ever up to the caliber of Saquon as a talent, and two,
Frank Gore is number 3 rusher all time in the league.
Yeah, but that was due to years. That was
he's the number 3 rusher all time.
Let's do this. I believe that the probably the closest comp where Saquon Barkley should fall between would be somewhere between Barry Sanders and LaDainian Tomlinson. And I do believe that as Saquon breaks down, because he will, and he'll lose speed and agility, I think he'll look a little bit. I think the worst version of him is Tomlinson on the Jets. He's got Barry Sanders, and he, by the way, his career was going to look like Barry Sanders' career too if he stayed in New York. It was going to look like Detroit all over again. Let's not pretend like Daniel Jones was any better than Scott Mitchell. I mean, it was hilarious for both of them. He got out of there. He got lucky, played the role of the bad guy for once. It's like, by the way, he doesn't like that. It made him very uncomfortable in interviews. Saquon Barkley doesn't like being that guy, but he was like, you know what? I can either be like Barry, a nice guy and, meek and mild, or I can actually get what I'm supposed to get out of this damn thing. And I think that's what he ended up doing. I think, again, Tomlinson, let's talk about him for a second. Fantastic running back, San Diego's whole career, and everybody looks at Marshall Faulk as the better run. I'll tell you what, take a look at those two, because LaDainian can fly, and he had just the same statistics. Actually, he had a better season of all time than Faulk did.
See, Marshall Faulk was a utility knife before there was a utility knife. Marshall Faulk was able to do it all. He could run between the tackles. He could run the sweep. He could catch the ball. That's what made him so great. He was what today's running backs are back then.
But he got publicized because he was in Los Angeles. LaDainian Tomlinson was doing the same thing in a beach.
But even when he was with the Colts, though, he was still known as the same thing.
I get that. But Tomlinson was doing the same thing he was doing the same thing in a beach town that Marshall Faulk was doing. He got
I will not put Barkley even in the same sentence as Barry Sanders, by the way. Not even in the same sentence. Barry Sanders, to me, is the greatest running back ever to carry the ball.
Well, he's got a couple highlights that look like Barry now.
In the same sentence as far as talent. I'm not talking about as far as I'm not talking as far as like
let's wait until we get to that.
Talent, yeah.
Let's wait until we get to
Barry's done things that no other running back I have ever seen.
I'm telling you, that play in Jacksonville last year, though.
I don't care. You throw on the Barry Sanders highlights, and I could give you 20 that could back up anything that Saquon Barkley has ever done.
We're starting to get there, though. We're starting to get a Saquon Barkley reel.
It's Saquon. It's Barry Sanders. To me, there is nobody in NFL history that has been a better runner than Barry Sanders. You give Barry Sanders any type of line with that Detroit team, he blows away every record in the NFL. Every record in NFL. Every. Not maybe. He does.
No, because
you've seen what the guy did with that crappy team.
I get it, but here's the thing. Maybe he needed to run that way. No. Hold on. You gave Le'Veon Bell a line in Kansas City, and he couldn't figure out any other way to run besides the way he did in Pittsburgh.
After 2 years out of the league.
I understand that, but Le'Veon Bell was never a traditional runner. Even at Michigan State, he kind of ran that way. Barry Sanders always kind of played the game like a bowling ball. He kind of maneuvered his way through the pins, and if they fell and they moved backwards, it was so interesting. I don't know if he would have done better with a traditional running style. If he was given a direct line and a direct route and a way to get there 100%.
Look at his Oklahoma State tape.
I know, but I feel like we fell in love with Barry Sanders' imagination better than the runner.
No, how could you say that?
Because Barry Sanders,
listen, I'm 50. I turned 50 on the 16th. So that was my peak time, was around that time when Barry Sanders was in the league. I remember him so fresh, and there is nobody could ever tell me that there is a better running back than him.
I'm not saying that.
But please throw on his YouTube highlight tape and then come and talk to me later.
Without those highlights, he's Tomlinson and Faulk. Without the imagination, Barry Sanders is those guys. He's Saquon Barkley. But
because he didn't have a line to run through a hole.
Right. And he sits up there with gods because he was able to do all of that with nothing.
But imagine if he did have a hole.
We wouldn't have those highlights. We would just have him running up the hole.
Because he would still be able to do that in the open field. All those open field people he made miss, we'd still get them.
Yeah,
we just wouldn't see him running 30 yards behind the line of scrimmage before he did those things.
Lamar Jackson's a better runner as a quarterback than Michael Vick, but we see the Michael Vick splitting two defenders and they smash together play.
Well,
and we
that's
go,
because Vick was so much faster.
But the highlights live here.
But that's two different types of runners.
But I'm saying what I'm saying is that the highlights is what we hang our hats on. It doesn't mean that the others are better. It means that, like, if Barry Sanders was given more, we might think less of him. That's all I'm saying. We think so much of him because
Emmitt Smith was given more, and look what he did. He broke the all-time rushing record.
Yeah, he's got numbers. I think less of him.
You know, I'm just saying, you give Barry some type of line,
he'd have better numbers. He'd have better numbers.
Give somebody with talent more.
He'd have better numbers.
You gave Saquon Barkley more. Look what he did.
He'd have better numbers, but he wouldn't live in our hearts. Barry Sanders lives in our hearts. Emmitt Smith, we go,
he would. We would still be in awe what he did.
He ran behind the best line. Anybody could do that. That's what everybody says about Emmitt Smith. That's what everybody says about his record.
But it's true.
I know it's true, but he doesn't live in our hearts. Barry always lives in our hearts. We always bang the drum for Barry, no matter what, and as we should.
And one of the reasons why we banged the drum for Barry is because Barry had a chance to leave Detroit. Barry didn't want to leave Detroit. Barry lived, breathed, and died Detroit to his own fault. His own fault.
And I think we do all of that because of the highlights, because of the difficulty. I think if he was given the ease for which Barkley, for which Faulk, for which Tomlinson had, and these bigger holes and the least amount of magic, there was so much imagination in his runs. I mean, you can put on the highlights and show it to a kid, and their eyes light up like they see in Santa Claus. They're like, wow. Nobody says wow about Emmitt Smith. They go, yeah, well, I mean, I can get 5 yards and then get my leg broken, but I'm getting 5 yards. You know, it is about the imagination. People go to Disney for the magic. Barry brought us Disney. Emmitt,
like I said, you give him a little bit more, I think we would have seen a lot more from him. We've seen it at Oklahoma State when he was there. He rushed for over 2,000 yards there in college. Would you rather him have better numbers or the highlights for which you have? I would rather him have better numbers because we would have still seen those open field misses, those open field spins, those stiff arms. Like I said, we just wouldn't seen those running 30 yards behind a line of scrimmage just to gain 3 yards. You know, we would have seen those other plays though. And I think we would have got a happier Barry and a longer career Barry.
Definitely the longer career part.
Yeah, I mean, the longer career is not debate. I mean, I do we love Michael Jordan as much if he didn't get body slammed a bunch of series by the Pistons? Probably not. We love that he came back and he was able to overcome. You know, we love a story.
But you could even say that about you could do the same thing with Jordan, with Barry. You know, Jordan needed to give Jordan a little bit more. What did he do? He started winning championships.
We gave it to him organically, though. We didn't just, we didn't just give it to him.
I'm not saying that the Lions could have drafted better. Yeah, draft some good offensive linemen. You know, they had two good wide receivers the whole time Barry was there. Johnny Morrison and I forget who the other guy was.
Detroit in those years was a little weird, right? Because we sit there.
In those years, I mean, Detroit has been weird for 50 years.
Oh, yeah. Right, I understand. But what I'm saying is that, like, when we talk about them like they were filth, yet they had the second best wide receiver in the league, Herman Moore, to Jerry Rice. I used to read the papers every week when we got him. Right, Herman Moore was great.
They both Herman Moore and
there was another one.
The other guy said Mortensen. They both had 1,000 yards receiving.
Yeah, and you had Barry Sanders. It's like, wow, Detroit's terrible. It's like, well, I don't know why they're terrible. They have all these guys.
Well, they're terrible, but because Scott Mitchell would throw 4 touchdowns, but he'd also throw 8 interceptions.
Wait, don't you mean Jameis Winston? Oh no, you do mean Scott Mitchell.
Scott Mitchell. Yes, who got paid a huge ass contract for one game for Miami when Dan Marino got hurt. He came in and lit the shit up. And he got paid off of that one game. He was a 6'6" quarterback. He was tall as shit.
We love our tall quarterbacks, right, John Elway? Used cars and tall quarterbacks. That's what John Elway does.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he was supposed to have been the savior for Detroit, but That just shows you can't base it off of one game.
All right, that was a lot of passion for Barry Sanders, Saquon Barkley, Marshall.
Yeah, I
Faulk.
listen. I'll bang the drum, bang the desk, bang my computer, whatever I have to bang for Barry Sanders. All right,
whatever. Wow, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna find some nickel girl and send her to your house.
I don't know about that. Joy wouldn't be too happy with that.
I'm just gonna send her. I'm gonna pay a nickel. I'll let her know what I paid for. She'll knock on your door. Nothing will happen, but it'll look embarrassing.
Joy will take that nickel and shove it somewhere where she doesn't want it.
Oh my God, that's all I have to do for some nickel fun? Fantastic. I'm winning this whole scenario. Let's shift gears.
All right. Now
the NBA playoff.
Yeah.
No more nickels.
No more nickels. No
NBA
nickel defense, nothing. Let's go.
NBA playoffs, we got the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just to catch you guys up real quick, the Oklahoma City Thunder were surprised that the Pacers were able to overcome a deficit and win game one. It will make the Oklahoma City Thunder, I believe, and Greg, you can catch me up here. Oklahoma City is now 29-2 against the Eastern Conference on the whole entire season, that being their second loss.
Correct. Yes,
against
they were 29-1 last week.
The whole conference.
Mm-hmm.
Against the whole conference.
Yeah, and that first one was against the Cavs in Cleveland. It's the only one they lost in the regular season throughout the year. So that means that the Pacers are the only team that beat OKC in OKC this year. Do you know who the last team that beat the Thunder in OKC before the Pacers just did? It's the Pacers last year.
Outpacing themselves. So,
all right, Liam, you're the big Pacers fan here. What do you think was the deciding factor on that comeback?
I think the deciding factor on the comeback, and I'm going to plug myself a little bit here, Greg. I write for Philadelphia Sports Network, PSN, as Jack knows. I put up an entire finals preview the other day before the start of game one. It has nothing to do with TJ McConnell and Isaiah Joe, but I had to make it some sort of Sixers-y. So, the football saying Jimmy and Joe's beat X's and O's. My title was TJ's and Isaiah Joe's beat X's and O's. Again, has nothing to do with McConnell and Isaiah Joe. Just had to make it mine. I think the biggest reason for the Pacers comeback is that they literally keep on doing this and they believe that they can do it. And like that power of belief is so organic and strong, because you see a lot of teams, they go down 20, 25 points at any given point and they sit on their hands, pack it up. Okay, we'll see what happens next time. The Pacers don't. The Pacers know that the game doesn't end when you're down 20 in the third quarter. The Pacers know that the game ends when the clock hits 0 in the fourth quarter. And Jack, you said something interesting. You were like, the Thunder were stunned to get that, to lose that game. Here's a take. I've never heard this backwards take. People always say, I'm surprised, but I'm not shocked. I think the Thunder were shocked, but I think that their post-game press conferences tell you that they weren't surprised, because obviously they've done it to every single team that they've played so far. And while the Thunder might be head and shoulders above the Bucks, the Cavs, and the Knicks, it can still be done to them too on any given night, especially when the Thunder aren't hitting their shots. And so Shea says in his post-game presser, he's like, nobody makes you realize that this is a 48-minute game more than this team. They were stunned and shocked to lose that game, but they were not surprised. They were not surprised. And I'll tell you who else wasn't surprised is the Pacers, who keep on watching.
They have been watching. Right? That press conference that you just talked about, that proves that Oklahoma City has been watching. Right?
See,
it's very much, Rocky 3, right? Remember how Mick was watching Clubber smoke the other opponents, like absolutely drilled them out of anger for all the accolades Rocky was getting, right? That, like, they've been, Oklahoma City's the favorites, and they've been over here in the corner just watching Indiana just club and club and club. And you're sitting there going, man, let's go Knicks, because you didn't want to see them, and now they're here. And you were hoping you can just get and beat down their confidence, and all of a sudden you added to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for me, I think a big deciding factor was their coach.
Oh yeah,
I think the experience. If you see that one time, there was a turnover where he tried doing a bounce pass to a 7-footer. I forget who it was, but you seen him time out. Call them all over. Let them know, like, guys, listen, we can't be doing these turnovers. Like, we're getting ridiculous at them. You can't do a bounce pass to a 7-footer. You need to do this. If you looked after kind of that timeout, like they started getting tightened. They started tightening up their play a little bit. A little less turnovers. Was it through the first 3 quarters or 3.5 quarters? They had 19 turnovers. The last 10 minutes
in the first half,
they had
19 turnovers.
Yeah, they had
In the
3
first half.
turnovers the last, I forget how many minutes.
5 in the 5. They had 5 turnovers in the second half, and they had 19 in the first half.
Okay, so I mean that's huge
Massive.
turnaround. Yeah, you key that with a couple key 3-pointers by OJ.
You had Nemhard hit one. You had Miles Turner bank the one, which is crazy. You had Nemhard hit the step back on SGA.
Toppin. He had 5 threes.
Obi Toppin.
Obi
Toppin. That's it. He hit those threes every time. It looked like OKC was about ready to pull away. Obi Toppin hit those threes. So that was another key point there too.
And you know what? To stick with your Carlisle point, Obi Toppin had about the most disastrous first 3 to 4 minutes of that basketball game that you could possibly imagine. Throwing the ball from baseline to opposite baseline, completely not ready for the moment. But you know what? Carlisle didn't take him out. He's like, and I forget who made this point. I'm sorry that I can't reference it, but it was a great point. And it's like when you start doing something like if you were to take Obi Toppin out after that disastrous first 3 minutes of the series in game 1, well, that's game 1, and you at least have 3 games. Well, you have all of game 1 to still go, and at least 3 more games after that. What message are you sending to the guy that you don't trust him 3 minutes into a series that's at least 192 minutes long? What are you or 202 minutes long, whatever the hell it is. What are you telling your guys when you take him out that early in the game? You stick with him and you get completely rewarded by the efforts of him hitting those shots down the line. Another thing Carlisle did is on that, what should have been called a foul on the out of bounds play with Cason Wallace and Pascal Siakam, was he's drawing it up like, okay, if this is called the foul on Pascal Siakam, this is what we're doing. If not, we're going to get this stop and we're not calling timeout to let them set the defense. They're drawing the play for the potential OKC miss if the call doesn't go their way in the timeout of the replay. I mean, it's just an extra layer of stuff that Rick Carlisle and his experience is going to think about in the end. And another thing that I wrote about in my piece is, now, while it wasn't the betting favorite or the betting disparity that it was in 2011, the aura between the 2011 Heat and the 2011 Mavs were miles apart. And the vast consensus was that the Heat were pulling out that series. And who made LeBron look? I mean, LeBron had, melted down in that series and had the worst showing of his professional career. But the coach on the other side of that was Rick Carlisle.
Yep.
And if he's going to do that again, and Eric Spoelstra was a young and inexperienced coach at that point, and he's another kid that was considered a whiz kid, just like Dagnall. It wouldn't be surprising to find in 5 years Mark Dagnall to be the best coach in the league. But Rick Carlisle is a better coach than him right now. He's more savvy than him right now, and he's seen more stuff than him right now. And that's an advantage Pacers.
Yeah, he's Popovich-esque, right? How he can just find certain things to make you uncomfortable and see if you're going to deal with them.
And let's go to the other side, to the OKC's coaching side. Don't you think that was kind of strange? This was the first game in the 16 games of the playoffs that the OKC's coach came in with a different lineup. I was
hoping you would get to that. So Chet Holmgren didn't play the Pacers in either game that the Thunder played the Pacers in the regular season this year. So they rolled with one big lineups both games against the Pacers this year, and they were comfortable with it as they beat them both times. And they really smacked them around in OKC in late March. And they
beat them by, I think last week, Jack and I talked to them. It was an average of like 13.5 points.
Right.
It was, if I remember correctly.
Right. But both of those games, they were used to just starting Hartenstein and then just bringing in one of their bigs off the bench. Now that they have the two big lineups at their disposal, is it a mind flex, or is it something in the back of your mind? And you see how the Pacers dealt with Cleveland. And if you have one of those kind of ground bound centers who really doesn't want to stray out to the 3-point line, Jared Allen, Isaiah Hartenstein, the Pacers, their speed and their relentless mismatch attacking is going to find the holes there. And I think Dagnall, one, thinks about his success without Chet in the series. And while I just said, that the Pacers plot on the slow-footed centers, they plot on the slow-footed centers in two big lineups. When you have one big lineups, you allow the physicality to play off of Miles Turner. Hartenstein's stronger than Miles Turner. The matchups are different. But when you're playing two big lineups against the Pacers, they're going to expose you almost at all times. Mm-hmm. And I think Daigneault kind of knew that. One, looking at the Cavs series with the Pacers, and two, just knowing the success that his team had without Chet this year. But it did seem a little reactionary, right? Like, why wouldn't you at least not try what's worked for you?
Exactly. It seemed more of a reaction to a game 2 adjustment than a game 1.
Exactly. And to that point, that's what makes me think, like, the Thunder this entire year have bashed everybody's skulls in, making them play the way that the Thunder play basketball.
And it has to do with not just their offense, but their defense.
It starts with
their defense is so good.
It starts with the defense. I mean, their defense probably has the strongest aura since the 04 Pistons, realistically. But the thing that Daigneault kind of showed in the game 1, and to your point, it should have been a game 2 adjustment, is like, oh, maybe the Pacers are the team that actually have to make the Thunder play, or are the team to make the Thunder play their way. Maybe they're the only team that can make the Thunder have to play their style of basketball instead of Thunder style.
That's interesting that he showed his hand and Carlisle went, we're going in here.
I think that has to be a difference of experience with coaching.
Totally.
I think Carlisle is just comfortable. He's been there, done that. He's like, this is what we're going to do. And the other, I forget what his name is for OKC, but I think he's
Mark Daigneault.
Okay, I think he's second guessing himself.
Yeah, I mean, so the Pacers, by the way, made the Knicks shift as well, right?
Mm-hmm. So they make everybody shift.
But that's right. So Carlisle's like, I'm willing to die on this hill, and other people are like, as they're meeting him to the hill, they're like, okay, what's a better way we can attack this hill? And Carlisle goes, I'm walking straight up that hill.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Carlisle has changed. He's kind of changed the course of the narrative on what playoff basketball is supposed to be, right? The past really since the Steph Curry explosion in, say, the 2013 to 15 range, the regular season's been all about running and gunning, putting up as many points as possible, with kind of just like the knowledge in your head that the calls are going to get a little tighter and it's going to become more of a half court style come playoffs. And you do see it on the scoreboards, right? Like, you see those 120 to 113 games more realistically become 100 to 92 games come April, May, and June. The Pacers have figured out a way to kind of like mitigate that half-courtiness of the playoffs and still figure out a way to put their offensive brand, which usually historically doesn't work in the playoffs, into these playoff series. They're still getting all theirs in transition. They're still getting theirs as quick as they want. And historically, that doesn't really work for the teams that want to play that way. And I think that that's another feather in Carlisle's hat, and maybe more importantly, the GM Kevin Pritchard's hat, is he's bringing in players and only bringing in players that can fit this style and can play this style.
And to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, they're bringing in guys that are in plus in efficiency. Haliburton, plus 13 in efficiency in this finals game. We talked about before the podcast started. He's 5 for 5, either game winning or game tying shots. The rest of the NBA is 4 and 26. So like, it all starts with, one, the coaching, second, the efficiency of the players that they're bringing in.
I think Haliburton's the best point guard in the game, and I don't care about.
You can't. The way he's playing, you can't deny that.
So the best true point, it's not close.
So yeah. So and I actually, once upon a time, I was watching a lot of Sacramento Kings basketball. I know you guys can knock me, whatever. I was watching a lot of Kings basketball. I get home late at night.
The Chris Webber days.
You guys how dare you? No. No, I was watching him because I wanted to see, whatever he was talking about with the De'Aaron Fox. I wanted to see if he was going to be able to rival and have a real, competition and friendly rivalry with Steph Curry, right? Because everybody's like, oh, De'Aaron Fox. And I was like, oh, the kid's gone from 17 to 23 a game. Let's see if he manages the game. And my one knock on Fox was that he was awesome. I never watched any players play well around him, really. Buddy Hield was okay. But what you noticed, I thought this was really interesting. Haliburton was drafted by the Kings. And when Haliburton would come in the game, yeah, he could get his scores. He'd give you 9 points. but like you just watched Heald run around screens faster. You would watch centers get set quicker. It was like, it was very, I mentioned this with the 49ers, right? When Garoppolo was there, right? Whether you liked Garoppolo or not, when Garoppolo sat under center, the teacher was there. Every other guy that sat under center, it was like that, the substitutes here. And it's crazy as it sounds, everybody knew that De'Aaron Fox was trying to get points for himself, but not win for the team. When Haliburton stepped in, he'd run the team first and figure out his points around it. But the team and their points were more important to Haliburton. Somebody saw that in Indiana, made a trade, whatever. We'll find another Sabonis somewhere to give us some kind of points. But this kid is special. And when they made that move, I literally dipped my head and I go, the Kings are done. You could see it. Like a shooter like Heald ran faster. He never runs faster. Ran faster for Haliburton, not for Fox. Somebody should have made the phone call in the gym and they didn't. They blew it.
Yeah, I agree. One thing
for me. Oh, sorry, Greg. Sorry, you go.
That's all right. I was just going to say real quickly. One of the things they were saying earlier in the playoffs, when Indiana would lose a game here or there, in a series, is when Haliburton's out, it's the team is hard. It's harder for the team to score because it's not as fluid. When Haliburton's in, everything's nice and fluid. Everything flows, and when he's not there, it doesn't. But I think the Indiana found out how to play without him on the floor and make it work too.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say the real heartbreaker of the Haliburton trade for me is that Haliburton is legitimately on record saying in the minutes after he figured out he was traded and he didn't know where he was going, he just assumed it was the Sixers because that's what all the rumors were for. And then his agent calls him back. It's like the Pacers, like, Indiana. He had like no clue that he was going there. He really expected to be a Sixer. We could have had the Tyrese combo, but it's fine.
What would he have been as good there? Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think Rick Carlisle is the guy that's helping make Haliburton like blend, making him better, making him up his game? Because he wasn't like that with the Kings, like Jack just said.
I think that, like, I mean, you if you give Haliburton, the keys to the kingdom, he's inevitably going to do what he does. I think Rick Carlisle's specific value and what wouldn't have actually happened under Doc Rivers or Nick Nurse or whoever he might have had here. What Rick Carlisle's specific value is when he, like, obviously you bring in like this very, very special talent. He's catering not only the lineups, but the play style to how Haliburton wants to play. And he did the same thing for Dirk and he did the same thing for Luka. And a lot of coaches are kind of stuck in their ways of it's my way or the highway. And I'll bring out the guy that you guys both said you like, Thibs. He's kind of that way. He didn't really adjust to making an offensive system that really benefited the strengths together of Brunson and Cat. And now I know that they lost because, they're both defensive zeros. That's not Thibs can't fix the people that they are. But Thibs could have done stuff, be it, decrease their minutes. And that's always been the thing with him, or just been a little less stuck in his ways. And I think that that's kind of where Rick Carlisle and people like Eric Spoelstra really excel, is that it's not just like their system is the end all be all. It's the people that they have create the system that is going to be what the team is.
I like that take. I do. That's a good take on it. I definitely see that. Absolutely. Yeah. So many times you see a player who has all the talent in the world with the team, and he's not doing too good, but he goes to a team you think he's going to do good, but that coaching just isn't there for that player.
Right.
Or that coach has a different philosophy than that fits that player. So it's nice to see somebody go somewhere and the coach smart enough to say, listen, it's not about me. Let's get this guy to grow a little bit. Let's give him, as Jack said, keys to the kingdom, and let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
And he blossomed.
Let him be the one who
drafted him. The Kings drafted him pretty high too. And you're like, well, wait, don't you have De'Aaron Fox? I thought you did. Somebody loved him so much that they pushed the button or sent the ticket in, and everybody went, wait, we have a point. He goes, I don't care. Fire me. I mean, no, we don't want to. Joe, we like you. We don't want to fire you. Why did you do that? He goes, he's better.
He's better.
And then later on in the day, you just saw him and you're like, what happened? He goes, I told him I was taking Haliburton, and here's my little brown box, and there goes my stapler. I love my kids. I'm going to work somewhere else. But I'm telling you, you're going to be wrong about that Fox kid. And we turn around here.
Absolutely love that it's Indiana and OKC in the finals. Other than, listen, would I have been ecstatic if my Warriors made it? Of course I would have. But I think in the long run, this is better for the NBA.
Yes. Screw the ratings, police. Like that stuff doesn't matter. If you like the sport, and it's the same thing for football. Who's been dominating the league for 5 years? Kansas City. Like, who cares about the market size? What you should care about is the captivatingness and the reason that you want to flip on your TV at the start time of any given game. SGA and Tyrese Haliburton are great for the sport. And just because like the mainstream 35-year-olds in Des Moines, Iowa aren't exposed to them on a everyday basis, maybe that's TNT and ESPN and ABC's problems for not scheduling them. But you know what?
Des Moines, Iowa.
For next year, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter the market size of the teams. It matters the exposure of the teams. It really. But
also you have to blame it on the NBA too, because they're the ones still pushing the old stars. They're the ones still pushing LeBron, still pushing Steph Curry, still pushing those guys. You know, they're not pushing those young guys. They're not pushing them to the forefront. I mean,
Charles
Barkley
Barkley,
whatever his name is, SAV, whatever his name is, OKC. He won the MVP. Everybody's like, who? Like, who is this?
Right,
guy?
and you know that is an issue that probably should look to be mitigated going forward. Like you want to see more Wemby on your TVs. You want to see more Anthony Edwards and people like that. Maybe that's where the market size thing comes in. But like what should really like not matter is like when you get two teams in the finals, you have to expect that there probably is a reason that these two teams are there and they're worthy of your time to watch them. And then you create like new fandoms of new players, of new experiences, of new styles, and that's what really carries it forward. If the Pacers and the Thunder are really, really good teams still in 2030, nobody's going to care about how big OKC and Indiana are. They're going to care about how these teams have been really, really good for 5 or 6 years.
And Jack alluded to this either last week or the week before, how a lot of the NBA teams are being put together now.
Yeah,
as far as the less super teams, more on the bench. And that's kind of how these teams are built. Yeah. So it's nice to have these two teams built this way in the finals to show, like, listen, we can win like this. We don't need the 3 superstars, taking over the game and then nobody else doing anything.
And
this is a complete team.
Either. You don't need
What's that?
You don't need the free agent allure either. Like, we can do this organically.
Yeah. Yes.
We finally got super teams. Like we didn't have they were 3 superstars and put a team around them. That's not a super team. You guys just deem them super teams.
It's a super collection of talent.
A super team has you can almost interchange players or 5 guys on either. You can almost go 10 guys deep and interchange them like hockey lines now. That's a real super team. I've got 10 guys on my bench. Use them all, Tom.
Yeah, we talked last week about the Warriors when they won their first championship with Steph and Clay and all them. Strength in numbers. I mean, their bench could have started for most teams in the NBA.
Yeah,
I love Leandro Barbosa.
I love Lexington. What was his name?
Livingston.
I always screw it. Livingston. Yeah, I always screw his name up. But I liked him when the Knicks drafted him, though. Like, I really thought he was going to be something.
And then he blew. Yeah, the knee blow. Yeah. It's one of the worst videos. Yeah. Like that. That is.
I know. But it was nice to see him come back and have such a good second part of his career with the Warriors.
Yes,
really was. I mean, coming off the bench. I mean, Jack, he nailed it the other day. The guy, not during a game, but during practice, he hit 100 mid-range pointers and 100 mid-range shots in a row. Like, that's just him. He was king of those mid-range.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking about the Knicks. I guess this is an appropriate time to bring up Tom Thibodeau. And yes. I have a take, and I think I know what happened.
All right. This is what I wanted to. Me and Jack are huge Thibs fans ever since the Bulls days. Yeah. I thought he did a great job with the Bulls with the whole Derrick Rose thing, Noah there and everything. Killer years. Defense. I mean, couldn't tell you how many games I've seen in the 80 to 90 range score-wise. Yeah, they didn't score 100 points, but defensively, they were a juggernaut. And that's one of the things I liked about Thibs. And to his detriment, too, is the way he coaches. I like the way he coaches. But like you said before, he doesn't like to change and stuff. So that does hinder him to a degree. But again, we do like Thibs, and I was anxious all week. I didn't text Jack, nothing, because I wanted to hear his live reaction on what he thinks about this firing.
Yeah, so I thought about it. I had conversations with a couple people about it because they know I'm a Knicks fan, and I sat there and I finally got to a conclusion on it. ESPN and Fox Sports will tell you their lie. And what they're telling you is, well, you know what? The Knicks were going to fire Thibodeau before the playoffs anyway. And the reason why they didn't fire him is because they won the Celtics series and blah, blah, so on and so on. Though that's not true at all. You're not just going to say you're going to fire a coach before their team performs in the playoffs. That's a stupid business model. And if that's how ESPN's business model is going, they'll be out of business in 10 years.
Well, I mean, I'll just pause you right there. Are you so sure about that when a man who was literally fired 3 games before the Denver Nuggets playoff run is doing cameo appearances for ESPN in the Western Conference Final?
Just real quick with him, that had been building for 8 months. They said that
How are you so sure that this hasn't been? How are you so sure that this hasn't been Thibs? This wasn't Thibs last year in Leon Rose?
Because it would have been, that information would have been released as soon as his firing happened, like the other coach. His firing happened.
Rose doesn't talk to people. It's embarrassing, but he doesn't. We don't know what he thinks.
His firing happened, and people inside the Denver Nuggets organization were like, dude, the players were miserable the very second they got back in the facility. He's been terrible. He's been this, that, and the other thing. They just couldn't deal with him anymore. In fact, Joker got to the point where he actually said something, and he doesn't talk to anybody. That's how bad he got. Right.
Actually, Joker said something on the sideline. Actually, he did. Reporter picked it up. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was a shot against the coach. And the next day he was fired.
He was done with it. Yeah. When Joker starts, listen, Joker can go out and give you 40 and 20. It doesn't matter. He was just absolutely done with that guy's attitude. The Thibodeau thing happened not immediately after. The first thing you do is exit conversations in a business. When the season's over, when the business is over, whatever, we're done for the year. Let's have
your exit strategy.
Your next strategy, your exit interviews. And here, what I think happened is they went player by player. And they talked about this player, they talked about that player, they went right down the line. And I don't believe that it's necessarily the first time this has happened, but I do believe in that exit meeting, Thibodeau blew up. Thibodeau actually absolutely had enough. And I think the conversation was centered around, I'm almost 100% positive it's Jalen Brunson.
We all know Thibs is a player's guy. He goes to bat with his players.
Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. Jalen Rose was his guy he went to bat for. Or not Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was the guy he went to bat for, right? Let's not pretend like Jalen Brunson looks a lot different than Rose, because he doesn't. He's 6 foot, all heart, not the same athleticism, but he looks the same. Okay. And they mentioned Jalen Brunson, and he started blowing up because they thought, well, maybe if we can move Brunson, because let's be honest, Brunson is not better than Haliburton. Maxey's getting better by the day. He's only
Maxey's not close to Brunson.
He's a lot closer than you think. He's a better defender.
I cover the team. He's got it.
That's fine. He's a better defender than Brunson is, and I don't believe that Brunson. I don't think Brunson's a lot better than Pritchard. What I think Jalen Brunson is what James Harden was in Houston. He's a tough left-hander to guard who draws a lot of fouls, and Houston never got past any walls either with James Harden's scoring style. He doesn't make players better. He dribbles the air out of the ball. But Thibodeau didn't want to hear it. He couldn't stand to hear it. His father's there. The Knicks are great. All these other things. They were looking to improve the team, and just talking about moving Jalen Brunson, he lost it. Flipped out.
Could they have been talking about moving Jalen Brunson and maybe another player?
Maybe Brunson was the tipping. Maybe
bringing Giannis in.
Maybe, But I'm telling you, Brunson was the tipping point. Brunson was it.
I think that's really interesting.
What happened at the end of this blow up?
Conjecture, because we'll never ever actually know. Because like I said, Leon Rose doesn't do interviews. But
I think what happened at the end of this blow up is they went, Dave, Joe, out in the hall. No, Tom, you can stay. And they sat him down. They went, look, that's not how you conduct yourself in business meetings. This isn't the first conversation we've had with you. And Tom went, but we're not doing Jalen. They go, Tom, you're fired. You don't fire a winning playoff coach with intentions to do so before the playoffs start on a Tuesday. They didn't intend on firing him that day. Not one bit. There was no plans to fire Tom Thibodeau on a Thursday. The meeting went sour. Everything went south. They mentioned Brunson, snapped, and he was out of there.
Or could it just have been Dolan with his big head being like, listen, it's not good. This isn't good enough.
I think Dolan's in Vegas. I think Dolan spends most of his time in Vegas at the Sphere, which he owns.
Because he is back making basketball decisions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they say that. I don't know if he's necessarily taking care of all the exit interviews. I don't know. But the only thing that I could come upon is that Brunson is his ride or die. And they brought him up. The decision and the conversation started going away from him. He started making a power move, and they went, goodbye, Tom.
So I think this is it's a very interesting theory that I'm so shocked that you had so layered for almost nothing being like leaked of anything like that.
Boy? How about your guy, huh?
I think
this for you.
I think the pretty realistic kind of side of this. I think the very realistic kind of side of this is like, look, front offices don't fire themselves, right? The only way that William Wesley and Leon Rose is going to get the boot is from James Dolan. And they are the ones who created the mess, and James Dolan isn't ready to get rid of them. So then what do? You have to then, as the GM, look for the next path. So William Wesley and Leon Rose, they trade their entire future for Miguel Bridges. They trade more of the future that you didn't even know they had, and some of the present for Karl Anthony Towns. You're locked into this team. You are locked into this team.
But what's so bad about that? They had their best year since 2003.
Well, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with the current construction of this team. The thing is, Coach Thibodeau isn't the one that's going to bring them a championship. And if William Wesley and Leon Rose think that this is the final iteration of the team, which it kind of pretty much is, because they've depleted all of their
assets. They can't make too many more moves.
They can't make too many more moves. Then they need to find the guy who's going to put them over the top. And maybe if you keep Tibbs, then I don't think Brunson is ever being talked about on the table from any of these Knicks higher ups. I think the one who's being talked on the table is the common denominator from Tibbs is also last stop, Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns has now gotten Tibbs fired from 2 locations. And I'm not saying that Karl Anthony Towns has gotten him directly fired, but I think the unwillingness to be able to work around Karl Anthony Towns' limitations is part of the reason that Tibbs is gone. Karl Anthony Towns is an awesome offensive player. He is a defensive turnstile. Jalen Brunson is an awesome offensive player. He's a defensive turnstile. And if you don't have the players and the pieces to make the right moves to surround those guys with the players who are going to mask them on defense. And, it's pretty hard when you have to play them at the same time anyway, right? No matter how good the 3 defenders are around you, you can't make up for 2 black holes on defense. Then you have to stagger the minutes, yada, yada, yada. You need a much more in-tune schematic coach than Tibbs is to be able to do that. Zach Lowe said this. This is interesting. There's a game in December that the Knicks played against the Charlotte Hornets. They won by 25. Mikal Bridges played the first 46 minutes of that game consecutively. He sat the last 2 minutes of the game in which they beat the Charlotte Hornets by 25. And that's another part of the problem. If he could play his guys 32 minutes, he'd still win 50 games with this collection of talent, and they're fresher for the playoffs. He is just a dogmatic coach and stuck in his ways, and I think that's kind of where it is. It's like the GMs realize they made this investment for Karl Anthony Towns. It's we move him, we move coach, or we move both. Moving to Karl Anthony Towns 1 year after you make that investment is them admitting they were wrong, and I don't think that they can do that. Also, you don't know what you're going to get back.
Wasn't Towns more of a Tibbs move than the front office move?
Say that again?
Wasn't Towns more of a Tibbs move than a front office move?
I don't.
That's what I thought.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I thought Thibs wanted Towns because he could do a little bit more offensively.
I mean, the offensive part, sure, but I think Thibs also knew that, like, I mean, he saw that playoff series against the Rockets, right, when he was the actual coach of the Timberwolves. Like, that, he's not cut out for the style.
Yeah,
of
but I
playoff
think
basketball.
he had enough defensive pieces around him that he was able to deal with his defensive play and lean more on his offensive play.
Well, then maybe you have to get the proof of concept that it doesn't work with him and Jalen together, which you then get this year. But then it goes back to the other points of, like, we have really no bullets left in the holster to be able to improve this team.
Mm-hmm.
So the only organic thing that we can do is take the guy off our books who doesn't count towards our cap space and see if we can get a better one in there.
See, that's my whole thing, is that I think that this is this team's ceiling, and he loves Jalen Brunson to a fault.
I totally agree that I don't think that they're going to win a championship. I think this is the ceiling. But again, as a Knicks organization, isn't this way better than the bottom feeders that you guys were for years?
Yeah, well, it is. But again, I don't think, you needed a buffer. That's what you really needed. You truthfully needed a buffer, and maybe the buffer in this case was Jalen Brunson's father, which wasn't a great buffer, right? If he's on the coaching staff and he's a buffer, that's not a great buffer. Larry David used to blow up at meetings all the time, but his buffer was Jerry Seinfeld. The show's name was Seinfeld.
How about the buffer being some insurance? If you trade 3 first-round picks instead of 6 for Mikal Bridges, then you have a future to look at.
I get it, but you needed a buffer for Thibs. You needed a book because he's always and he's losing. His hair hates him. His hair is leaving his head by the set. I mean, mine's leaving, but his is leaving.
His entire head coaching career, he hasn't had a buffer. He's been the same dude.
You just
need. No, but that's where you need a mom somewhere. You got the strict dad that's always yelling. And then you need the mom to come along, kind of smooth things out and say, no, this is what he really meant by this.
So Seinfeld used to be in meetings all the time with David. David would stomp off. I'm not changing anything. He'd take the elevator downstairs, sit out, and he'd sit out on the park bench. And they'd go, Jerry, I know that he's your buddy and he writes with you, but, and he goes, no. He didn't mean that. We're good. And they go, you're going to work with him? He goes, yeah. I work with this. This is how we work. And they went, okay, well, we're good. We'll sign him to another contract, and he'll change some things. And Jerry goes, yeah, he wants to change. And he'd go downstairs. He'd go, Larry, you got to change some stuff. He goes, yeah, I know, but if I tell him to change some stuff, they'll want me to change all stuff. I got to be the bad guy. You're the good guy. Jerry's like, oh my God, Jesus, this guy's crazy. Thibs needed that guy. He needed he was given too much
doesn't
control.
Have that guy. And Liam's what he just said, he never had that guy.
The Knicks should have put one in charge.
But
they should have given him a friend.
You can't expect a team owned by James Dolan and run by a ghost to put that guy in. The face of the team, yes, the face of the team is Brunson, but like the voice of the team is Tom Thibodeau. And the voice of the active voices of NBA teams that really should be successful are the GMs and not the coaches. And now there are some example, like there are some deferring examples there, like Eric Spoelstra is the face of the Heat organization. You know what? They also have Pat Riley. But like
Kerr.
Well, now we got a real problem. Now we got a real New York problem, right? Because they threw out the rumor. I guess there was a rumor they were going to throw this out there anyway. Jay Wright's not interested.
Yeah, he's not interested.
Jay Wright was never.
That was never ever going to happen.
No. I know. Yeah, he said that was never on the table.
It was never on the table. New York put that out there so that the fan base will stay quiet over the weekend while they're losing games to the Red Sox. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
They also put that out there to put some of the fire off of Josh Hart, just so you know.
I agree with that. So the Knicks are kind of putting rumors out there. The Knicks have 0 real prospects. They have 0. Oh, we're asking to talk to Jason Kidd. You're not going to talk to Jason Kidd. You're not going to talk to anybody.
I cannot stand Nico Harrison. Why would he allow that? Why would you allow that?
You fired a coach that was successful. That's what you did. Let's start there. You fired a coach that was successful with a successful team.
With no backup plan.
And everyone in the media, I consider us in the media. Everyone in the media knows that you don't fire somebody on a Tuesday with intention. You do it on a Monday after their weekend, and then you start your week. There was no intention here. You have no direction. You have no plan.
The one name I heard floating out there was Dan Hurley from UConn.
So I thought Dan Hurley maybe, and this is why I thought Dan Hurley maybe.
I think that would be a good marriage right there. I really do.
The Knicks would buy Hurley out of his contract. They would do that. Dan Hurley would have access to the scouting in that area with his father. That was his one thing. What happened with his brother, Bobby? Remember, Bobby was very good at Buffalo, went out to Arizona State, and all of a sudden he knew none of the scouting guys because his dad owns some of the Northeast prospects. Okay. Old man Hurley owns some of the scouting up in the Northeastern. Okay. And when Bobby went out to Arizona State, he had to start all over. He didn't know that was going to happen. It doesn't matter. He went out there for better weather. But Dan Hurley won't leave the East Coast because his wife is from New Jersey, and that's their whole little niche right there. And by the way, keeps him close to Papa Hurley as well, so he can find those prospects and still get those, old good guy phone calls. Right. So if Dan Hurley went to New York, you would essentially be getting Tom Thibodeau again.
And to some regard, that's why they can't hire Mike Malone either, right? The name that makes the most sense is Taylor Jenkins, the old coach of the Grizzlies.
Yeah, he does make the most sense.
I don't have any other names. I mean, like I said, I personally think Dan Hurley would do a good job there.
Fantastic job.
But again, I don't think he really wants to leave college. I think he's perfectly happy where he's at.
Yeah,
UConn is kicking, I believe, the basketball. It's going to be UConn versus Florida. That will begin the NCAA basketball season, which Florida just won it last year. They just signed their coach Golden to a 4-year contract, and that matchup implies Hurley's going nowhere.
Mm-hmm. So I hope he doesn't. Listen, I'm a Bama fan, but UConn's my basketball team. So I hope he stays. But if he does end up going, I hope it is to a storied franchise somewhere like the Knicks or something, a team that has history, somebody that I can maybe not root for, but appreciate where he's going and not hate where he's going.
You know what? Why not? Right? We're on air. I'll say it. Listen, I've been a New York Knicks fan for many, many years now. Right? I know how your organizations run. I know, James, you really don't care. Right? You care about music. That's fine. Let me at least scout basketball operations, and we can have conversations about whether we want a 6-foot guard that dribbles the air out of the ball every single time he gets it in his hands. I understand he scores 35, but he's James Harden light. Hire me. I don't want a coach, but I'll find you another coach. I'll find you better players, and you could send me on any plane anywhere as long as you pay me properly. There, that's my bid to be New York Knicks scout. I'm just saying.
And what you're going to get, you have that cricket sound? Can you play?
I have it right.
That's the answer you're going to get.
That's fine. That's fine. Now me and Jay Wright have something in common.
You're not getting crickets because he doesn't want to answer. You're actually getting crickets because James Dolan never heard you.
Yeah, he never heard nothing.
I actually have crickets in my bedroom now. This is getting weird. No, it is what it is. The New York Knicks are willing to take steps backwards in order to make that fan base as passionate as Philly.
I think the sad thing about the Knicks franchise is that every once in a while they end up having a good season here or there sporadically, and they always end up screwing it up. And the thing is, I think Dolan is perfectly happy having a mediocre to shitty team as long as he's still selling out MSG.
Oh, it's crazy.
The minute he stops selling out that MSG, that's where he's going to start getting concerned.
They said Phil Jackson did such a bad job as the general manager of the Knicks, right? And I think what was funny is Phil Jackson found Kristaps Porzingis out of a pile of Latvia, right? He turned out to be a good basketball player. He found a couple other players that worked within the system, but his most successful venture was in New York. He wanted to get their balance sheet down so that he could actually go out and offer players some money, but he couldn't do that for the first couple seasons. So he took their balance sheet from negative $75 million back to zero. So the Knicks that you have now that you're able to pay for players and bring some in, thank Papa Phil. He did it. Like, that's the guy that did it. That's the guy that gave you an opportunity to even be having conversations with coaches like Thibodeau and paying players like Brunson and moving this guy here. He had a bloated balance sheet that, I know that we loved him as a Detroit Piston, but let's not pretend like Isaiah Thomas is this, beacon of managership. And no, he's not, so I think Phil Jackson deserves a lot of credit, and New York has once again found themselves in the same kind of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, but the difference between then and now is they still have a team that can put together a solid season. They still can make it to the finals. They could still make it to the conference final.
And here's an underlying factor that none of us really mentioned is next year with Thibs and relatively the same roster, you kind of have an idea of what the team might be, right? And even if your players get incrementally better, you're still at least a step behind the Pacers. But next year, there's no Celtics. So next year, that conference is you and Indiana, right? And then everyone else is kind of fighting to get up to you. Maybe Detroit makes the rise. Milwaukee's probably not going to. The Sixers aren't going to. I don't know. Really, the Cavs are still probably going to be pretty relevant, right? But they might look to trade Garland. Who knows? And who knows what the makeup of that team looks like. The Knicks really have to think again, we don't really have the future here. This window's open, but that window's really open next year. And if we think that we have, or if we think we know what the maximum of this team is with Thibs, and we think that we can win it all next year with relatively the same pieces because of the diminishment of the East, then you have to make the move. Then you have to justifiably tell your fans, hey, we are going to try something different. If it backfires. We can have that conversation a year from now. But if the window's as wide open as they believe it is next year, and in a conference that might just be them and the Pacers fighting for it again, you got to try something different if you already know you're a step behind the Pacers.
Yeah, if they miss the playoffs next year, though, they're going to be crucified.
And I wonder
there's no chance of that unless they get hurt.
Oh, I'm just saying, if they do, if this turns around and ends up blowing up in their face, becoming some big disaster like the Bulls did, that's what happened with the Bulls. Bulls imploded. They ended up sucking for how many years after Thibs was there?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, if the same thing happens there, and there's going to be a lot of head turns.
Thibodeau would deploy a general, right? And his general was Rose. Rose got injured. The second in command was Joakim Noah. And they were still able. Thibodeau's message to the team was, hey, boys, let's go out there, and I'm going to play whoever's going to go out there and knock off this $100 million team. Thibodeau doesn't give a rat's ass. Right. He sends his team for which, and those players for which he believes, he sends them to war. That's really what he does. And
that's part of his detriment. That works to his detriment.
It does. But I do believe that, I think that the Knicks are going to be looking around for a general next year when things get tough, and they're going to go, there's no general. Where is he? They only know how to play that way now. They only know how to galvanize with Tom screaming. Like when he's like, and the voice is gone. You're going to have some cupcake in there or some guy in there saying the same things without, Tom would have a heart attack on the sideline. And his last words would be, go beat him. Like, he's nuts. And lose that. You lose that.
That's why whoever you bring in has to have some kind of cachet.
Totally. Has to have some kind of cachet. But, also you can also at least rely on the winning DNA that you have in the roster. OG Anunoby's a champion. Hart and Brunson are college champions, right? And they've had enough success in the NBA. Mikal Bridges is another college champion who's played in the NBA finals before. They had success. The generals and soldiers are there. You don't have to have the drill sergeant of Tom Thibodeau. You have the general named Jalen Brunson. You need somebody to be able to open up that battlefield and make them see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not just basic training every single day we go to work like it is with Tom Thibodeau.
My last thought on the reason why I picked Brunson, and I think he was a center point and a focal point in the exit meetings, is because they watched Tyrese Haliburton dog walk him. They watched Brunson score all these points, and Haliburton was really in control the whole time. The whole time, Tyrese Haliburton was like, go ahead, burn yourself out, little guy, because I'm going over here and I'm going over there. I like Haliburton because to me, he reminds me of what Lonzo Ball's ceiling could have been. He distributes first, moves second. Like people go, oh, all ball pushes the ball when you least expect it. And then he runs an offense, whether you want to call it the triangle, the Tex winner, whatever you want to do. What he does is he's a distributor first. He'll find his points when his guy starts to get tired. And he dog walked him. And again, Jalen Brunson's ceiling is what James Harden did in Houston. I promise you, that's how this New York Knicks story is going to turn out. And then they will get rid of everybody, and then they will start over again. And this won't even rival the Patrick Ewing, John Starks years. That's all. That's the rest of what I have to say on the story.
Yeah, I got nothing else to really. I put in everything I pretty much could put in on this whole Knicks thing. Like I said, I love Thibs. I've always have. I see why they got rid of him. I just hope it doesn't backfire for him, because let's face it, just like when the Lakers are good, when the Knicks are good, it's better for the NBA. They're a storied franchise.
Definitely.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's about all we got this week, right? Anything else?
I think that's all I have.
Baseball? Any baseball? Any?
Oh,
type
yeah.
Of baseball
Before we
news?
get out of here. That's right. I appreciate it. Every once in a while, you ignite my fire. All right, here we go. I cannot, dude. I was so mad yesterday. I almost got thrown out of work. I watched Rafi Devers, that fat tobacco chewing maniac. No, he ran bases yesterday worse than Babe Ruth. Right? He's guessing on first. Barely got to second, and he got to third. Fantastic. Anybody else, including myself and you two, we would have found our way home. Not Rafi Devers. Nope, can't find his way home. And then a ball is hit to second base, and he half runs to home, and then he starts running home again. The second baseman could have been a farm leaguer, right? You know the play I'm talking about. Don't laugh. It could have been a farm leaguer. He throws the ball home, and he tags him standing up. Hey, big guy, bang, he hits him with the club right in the chest. Hits with the glove right in the chest, and Rafi Devers walks off, with the big wad in his mouth. I don't care. Like, at least have some smarts. By the way, the next play, Boston gets a base hit. Now, they won the game. But you can't be stupid like that against real franchises like the Yankees and like the Dodgers. Oh, by the way, the Mets are pretty good. If you're a team that wind up having to play the Phillies, there are real teams out there that, like, I'm not knocking big guys. Kyle Schwarber's a big guy, but he runs the bags great. He's not a thief, but he can take some. I was screaming. The obscenities I screamed Rafi Devers' way. I hope he never comes back to third base. I hope he's only a DH. I hope they move him over to first, despite his angst of it. You have to run the bases the right way. You caused your team a run, and it could have mattered at the end. By the way, wasn't it 8-7 for a minute? It was. And it could have been 9-7, but you didn't run the bags the right way. And I can't say, it drives me out of my mind that you didn't even care. Like throw an elbow at the catcher. Push him. This is Yankees Red Sox. You stood there and took it.
You all right now? You good?
I could. I'm good now.
Okay. All right. My baseball news is I fought back in my fantasy league to 500. I'm losing to Jack by a point right now. Right now. 1 point.
Right now.
This very second, right now, 1 point. So that should change later. But yeah, that's about all I got for baseball. Oh, and my White Sox beat the Royals 4-1.
Go White Sox.
Yeah, and I started the Royals pitcher. And I started the Royals pitcher.
Make me happy again, and that's about it.
What's happening again?
I'm waiting for the Phillies to make me happy again, and that's about it.
Dude,
It's been a rough 2 weeks for him.
I screamed Schwarber's name
so many times. Like 3 years for me. What are you talking about?
Brother, I screamed Schwarber's name. I was like, Schwarber can do better in the bags. Schwarber can do better in the bags. Somebody across the bar goes, "Are the Phillies playing?" I went, "Oh, shut it." All right, guys.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Liam, you got anything to tag? By the way, everybody out there, it was fun having Liam with us, right? Liam
Absolutely.
Sags. That was fun having you on a Sunday.
Much appreciated.
Anytime you want to come on, hit us up and we'll have you on.
You're in, baby.
Let's ride.
You know?
All right.
Anything else, guys?
Nope. Thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely. Anytime. And guys, as always, we appreciate all your support over here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch. And as always, be excellent to each other.